Okay, thank you all for joining us for the Thesis and Dissertation Process, Steps for Formatting Review and Common Mistakes workshop. Today, presenting for us, we have Dr. Jennifer Stevens, Thesis and Dissertation Manager, and then I will go ahead and hand it over to her to get us started. And thank you for sharing your expertise today.
Thank you so much. And it's wonderful to be here with you all. Sorry we had to reschedule, but we're here and ready to go. And it actually worked out kind of well because there's a few updates that have happened to our team in terms of formatting and stuff. So that gives me an opportunity to share with you all. So let me go ahead and share with my screen or share my screen. There we go. All right. So, the bulk of what we're going to be talking about today is the thesis and dissertation formatting process. But as I mentioned, there's been a couple of updates to the process at the university level. So, I will talk to you about that today as well. So, first, I'll go over what that update is, and it includes an accessibility review, and we'll go over all of that good stuff. And I'll talk to you about how and when to submit your final document for review, go over some of the resources that we have that will help you prepare your document for both accessibility and the format review. And then I'll talk through what the review process looks like. So, what you can expect with the back and forth with your reviewer, just so you're kind of prepared for that whole process. And then finally, I'll go over a couple of the common formatting issues that I've seen while doing this. So again, my name is Jennifer Stevens, Dr. Stevens. I'm the thesis and dissertation formatting manager. And you'll hear it a million times today, but always feel free to reach out if there's any questions that you think of after today. So first, our first little update for today is with accessibility. And so this is not only at the college level or institutional level, this is because of some federal mandates. So the university is required that any theses or dissertations that we publish to our repository after April of 2026 must be accessible for viewers. And so not to fret though, because as with the formatting, everyone is really trying to do their best to help students with that accessibility piece. And so next time I do this presentation, or it'll probably be two separate presentations, one on accessibility, kind of tips and tricks, and one just on the formatting, because there is still a lot to do for that. But there are some resources. So the first one is the UNLV Office of Accessibility Resources, and they offer a variety of tools linked here. And the Grad Academy can share these slides with you all so you have the links and all this good stuff. But they will be kind of one of your best friends to help you get through this accessibility process. And they have several documents and videos to help with this. They also offer some instructional webinars. Some of you might have already taken some of these accessibility webinars, maybe because you're teaching a class or just interested in wanting to learn more about this, as it is becoming more common in academia. And they also offer one-on-one offer-hour assistance. So you can schedule appointments to meet with them and have them look at your document with you if there's anything you're struggling on. And then also, we at the grad college can definitely help as well. So we're currently in the process of finalizing, updating all of our different manuals that I'll talk about in a little bit, to include that accessibility piece. So for example, we have a headings and subheadings formatting manual. So in that, there will be a section added that talks about how to make sure all of your headings are accessible and so that they'll be able to pass the accessibility check. And then we're also going to be offering some one-on-one assistance via our office hours appointments. So it is a really big change, but again, it is worth it so that it's accessible to everyone who wants to see it, right? And really important that it is being required from this kind of federal standpoint. So we really do have to do our best as a university to try and comply with this. So, like I said, we're doing our best to try and help on our end. To make that piece as easy as possible for you because we know it's enough work to write these theses and dissertations and get all of that completed to begin with. And so all of these extra steps and pieces that people are having to worry about, we're doing our best to kind of address those and help you along the way. So if you have been to one of these workshops before on the thesis and dissertation formatting, I've talked about, and I will talk about today, the different steps that you need to take and what that process looks like. So with this accessibility piece, just there's a few things that have changed. So just really quick to kind of review that before we get into the bulk of the material for today, which will be on the formatting process. Um, so before you upload your final document to the portal to have us review, it'll ask you a question on there. Have you checked that your document is accessible? And there's, using the resources that I just had on that other slide, there's several different ways you can check that. And so you'll want to do your own check and use the resources provided to try and make it as accessible as possible. And formatting. And then you're going to upload that to the submission portal. After that, one of our reviewers will do an accessibility check, and they'll write you back and let you know exactly what needs to be fixed. So they'll provide you with a checklist, let you know what still needs to be addressed, and then they'll also provide you with the resources on how to do that. And again, if it's something that you're working on and you're stuck and you cannot figure it out, we at the grad college can always help. And also that Office of Accessibility Resources can help as well. So you're not in this alone. Don't forget that. And then, so once your document is approved for the accessibility check, then that will be passed on to one of the lead reviewers on our team to make sure that your formatting is correct. And we'll go over that whole process today. And then the final step, as it was before, is uploading your final document to ProQuest. So really just that addition with the accessibility piece. But like I say, there will be a lot of communications coming out, and it is super new. Like I said, we're not really starting implementing the accessibility checks until April. So it gives you a little time to kind of prepare for that as well. All right, so preparing for your format review. After your defense, whether it's your thesis, dissertation, or doctoral project, you will most likely have some type of edits from your committee that you will need to do, whether it's adding something, taking something out, or reorganizing. They will give you some type of feedback. And then once you've implemented their feedback and your paper is finished in terms of content, right? Nothing else is going to be changed. That's when you can go ahead, if you haven't already, and check your document for accessibility. And again, you'll work with the graduate college, looking at our updated manuals and working with the Office of Accessibility Resources to make any necessary changes so that your document is accessible as you can get it to be. And then after that, after you've worked on your accessibility piece, or in tandem, right, you can work on your formatting as well. And so today I'm going to go over the variety of resources that we have to help with that. And then after that, you'll make any edits that you can, again, getting it as close as possible to being formatted correctly. And then you'll go ahead and submit. And like I say, so kind of tips and tricks that I've seen over the years doing this job. One piece of advice is that the closer you can get your document to being finished in terms of the formatting and now in terms of the accessibility, before you submit, the better off you'll be. The faster process it will be, and a lot less stressful and easier on you and the reviewers and just everyone. So as long as you take a look at the resources and reach out if you need help, and it's on your radar, it shouldn't be too stressful of a process, right? And that's my whole team's job. I always tell people is to make this part of the thesis dissertation process as stress-free as possible. So keep that in mind. So here are some of the different resources we offer students in terms of getting your document ready. And again, when these slides are shared with you, you'll be able to click on all the different hyperlinks and take a look at some of this information. And so our first piece of resources that we have are our formatting manuals. So if you go onto that graduate college slash thesis website, that's our website where we store all of these manuals. Also, we have other things that you might need, such as the required document order, what sections are required and which are optional, and what's the order that that should be in, regardless for your final document. But in there, in those manuals, we have step-by-step instructions along with some visual aids that really help to break down each step of the different formatting processes. So, for example, in our table of contents manual, we lay out how to create a table of contents automatically in Word. So that it's clickable, right? You can click on the chapter and it will take you to that chapter. And also how to make one manually if you like that tactic a little better. Everyone, it just kind of depends on what type of, I guess, computer skills you have, which one's easier for you. So we try and always give every option that we can to make it, as easy as possible when you're trying to put this into place. So we have all of those formatting manuals. And again, there's a lot of them on there. Like every section you can think of, we have a formatting manual, cover page, abstract, acknowledgments, right? There's a manual for everything. And so sometimes when people go on there, it can be a little overwhelming, I think, when they see like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to look through all these documents. But what I suggest is just kind of focus on the ones that you think that you're struggling with or think that you want to double check, and just kind of go from there. So you don't necessarily need to sit down and just read every single manual that's out there, but that would just be my tip. Okay, and then we also offer a variety of YouTube videos, and this walks you through, while showing it on the screen, how to do some of the different formatting. We have, I think, like 3 or 4 available right now for different sections, and then we're always adding to those. And then when all else fails, or if you're not positive that something is correct, go ahead and set up a formatting office hours appointment. And this is where you'll have one-on-one assistance. Typically, it's with me. And so these are held on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 2 Pacific time. And so what I'll usually do is have the student send me your document before we meet so that I can have it. And then I'll share my screen like how we're doing now. and I can walk through any of the changes that still need to be made with you. And again, when all else fails, just send an email to that grad.td@unlv.edu. That's the general email for any kind of questions you have about graduating, this final process of submitting your document or anything like that. And if it ends up not being a question for our team, we'll get you to the right person. So when in doubt, just send an email there and we will find you the help that you need. All right. So when you've taken a look at your document, right, you've had your defense and that's over with, and congratulations, and that part is done, and you've made all of your edits that are needed, and then you go ahead and try and make it as accessible as possible, and you've looked at some of the formatting stuff and have that all set to go. Then it's time to submit your final document. And so to do that, you're going to go to the Grad College Thesis and Dissertation website. That picture on the top right, that is what the web page looks like. And you're going to go down to number 10, Format Review. And that where it says submission website, that's a hyperlink that will take you to our submission portal. And once there, you'll be able to upload your final PDF. And then that's the only time you're going to need to do anything through that portal is on your initial submission. Every kind of communication and back and forth after that is going to be via email with your reviewer. So only on your initial submission do you need to use that portal. And so once your document is uploaded and you fill out some different information on there, like you'll have to enter your NSHE ID, who is your chair and their information, things like that. Then it gets sent off to one of the reviewers on our team, where they will fill out a checklist that looks similar to this. And don't worry, students are not required to go through each line of the checklist and make sure everything is right. There is one available on our website so that you can see what it says and read through it. But here at the top, in that top section, they will put the number of the section that you have revisions in. So for example, it's kind of small, but again, when you look at it on your own, you'll see that here it says 1 and then cover page. And so our checklist includes 10 different sections, and we'll include those numbers up at the top. So let's say you need to have revisions on your cover page and your references section, right? They'll put number 1 and number 8 or whatever that is at the top of the checklist. And then you'll go to the bottom of that section and it will lay out for you pretty clearly what exact changes need to be made. And so we try and be as clear as possible. So things like, let's say if there's something with your title, they'll write on there in the notes section, like, please make sure your title is centered on the page, or please make sure your title is double spaced, right? So we try and communicate as clearly as we can what exactly needs to change, so you're not having to do extra work of trying to decode the checklist. So don't get too intimidated by the checklist. That's mostly for us on the back half or on the back end of that. And so with the different reviews, whether it's the accessibility review or the format review, which I'm separating it, or I keep talking about it like two different things because it's kind of new and like this new distinct piece. But it is one process, right? You're only submitting your document that one time, and they'll do an accessibility check, like I said earlier, using a similar checklist. You'll go back and forth with them on that a couple of times. And then once your document is accessible, they'll send it to the reviewer, and we'll work on the formatting checklist. And typically, again, whether it's accessibility or formatting, you can expect to hear back in around 4 business days. And depending on when you submit your document, it might be a little faster or it might be a little longer. And so it really just all depends on how many documents we get at one time. So obviously, if you submit before the graduation deadlines, you'll probably get a faster response. If you submit like the day of the deadline, there will be all kinds of papers coming in, and that's totally fine. That's why there's a deadline. Um, but it might take a day or two more. So just so you have an idea what that will look like, and you'll go back and forth with your reviewer on both the accessibility piece and the formatting piece, using the different resources we have until that is ready to go. And as it says here, you'll just kind of make those corrections, whatever they suggest needs to be changed. Go ahead and implement that. And you might have multiple rounds of edits, right? And this is pretty normal. Even doing and being in this position, right? I had edits for my own dissertation, and I was already in this position, so I thought, oh, my formatting is going to be perfect. But you're looking at this document for so long, as you all know, that you just miss little things, and that's what's nice about this whole process, right? Is that you've invested all of this time and energy writing your thesis or dissertation or doctoral project, and this whole piece about doing accessibility reviews and the format reviews, it's really just to ensure that at the end of the day, your document looks as professional as possible, is accessible to as many people as possible, right? To spread your knowledge and information around. So it is worth it, right? But it does take a little time. And so after you go back and forth, finally, eventually, you will receive formatting approval. And so you'll receive an email that kind of looks like this. Congratulations, you've received approval. And what happens is your RPC coordinator or retention progression completion. Actually, we cover that on here, so I was right. Okay. So, after or when you receive that approval email, we will CC your RPC coordinator on there. And then that lets them know to check all of your documents to make sure everything has been submitted, your culminating experience forms, and all the other forms that you need to have in. And then they'll communicate with you back and forth. And they will go ahead and insert your approval page. And so once they insert that approval page for you, they'll send it to you to verify that everything looks good, everyone's names are correct, it, has the right title in the right way. And then once you tell them, like, yes, everything looks good to go, they will go ahead and send you the official instructions for how to upload that to ProQuest. And woohoo, that is the final step. Like the very last step of graduating, right? Like once you have uploaded this, like that's it, you're done. You can breathe and celebrate. So you're not too, far from that, but there is some work after that defense. But as I mentioned before, my team is there to help with all of these different issues, right? The accessibility and the formatting. So don't stress out too much. I think I always tell students that as long as it's on your radar, that like you need to address some of these issues, or you'll have to be looking at some of these manuals and things, then that's most of the battle. The actual like fixing of the document isn't too much work, but the stress comes when students are not really thinking about the formatting, or maybe their advisor didn't tell them about the formatting side and all this. So then it gets a little rushed to meet the deadlines. But as long as you're kind of thinking about this as you're working on it or wrapping up, you should be fine. And a good time I would suggest to be thinking about the formatting and to really look at that is once you submit your final document to your committee, and you're waiting on them to read it, review it, and get ready for your defense. Usually that might take about a week, a couple weeks. So in that downtime, in that kind of middle time while you're waiting for them to look at your content, that's when you can really start looking at some of these other things, and get prepared for that. All right. And so the last thing I'm going to go over today, and we will have some time for questions and stuff, is some of the most common formatting mistakes that we see. And so the first thing we're going to go over is the cover page. And you might think like, oh, it's just a cover page, right? How difficult could it be? And it's not that it's technically hard or difficult to do, but it's just that there's so many components, and everything needs to be in the right space, the right place. And so it is important that you kind of take a good minute and look at the cover page manual. And just to get a sense of like what it should be like, and that will save you a lot of time and energy down the road. So just to kind of break it down so that you know what all will be on there, you'll have your title in all caps at the top of the page, centered. If it's more than one line, that's the only thing on the cover page that will be double spaced. And so you'll see in the cover page manual or in the cover page YouTube video a couple of different examples of what that looks like and how to change the spacing on the cover page if you need help with that. Um, Apologies, my dog. And so then we have by on the cover page following your title. And then under that is going to be your legal name as listed on my UNLV. And so